our topic is about feminism. We chose this because we thought it was really like modern topic or something like that. So first of all, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the history of feminism because maybe you didn't study at school. And afterwards, she will introduce some of the main ideas and some of the most common discrimination women suffer around the world. Okay, so first, in the history of feminism, we start in the Illustration moment. We consider that the first feminist movement took place in the French Revolution, and in this moment, the main goal of the feminists was focused to reach the same civil rights for women and men. In 1791, Olympe de Gouges, I don't know if you know who was her, wrote the Declaration of Women's Rights and Female Citizens, claiming the same rights that men had recognized in the Declaration of Men's Rights and Male Citizens. This was considered like the... Yeah, I talk so fast, I'm sorry. It's in Spanish, it's the same. This was considered the first step of feminism. However, it had many opponents, such as the famous philosopher Rousseau, who said frequently that women and children must be excluded from the political and public system. Another important fact in the feminist history was the work Vindication of Human Rights, of Women's Rights, written by Mary Wollstonecraft, in which she openly protested for the first time about the discrimination that women had been suffering in education and political. So, once we introduce the basement of feminism, I'm going to talk about the fourth wave of feminism. The first one takes place in the 19th century until the beginning of the 20th century, and it was taken most part in the UK and the US. In this moment, the feminist movement was especially focused on claiming for political rights, such as male vote, and also to marriage rights. The movement of suffragettes in London, headed by Emily Parscrutch, was a clear example of this. We have to point to the Seneca Falls that took place in 1848 in the United States, which was one of the first conventions that started to collect some of the main ideas, and it's like the precedent of the modern, let's say, agreements about women and kids' rights that we have today in different countries. And also a part of the suffragist movement and Seneca Falls in this century, there was in the east of Europe and also Russia, another kind of movement that was closer to the communist and socialist. And the feminists took this movement to make a feminist based on the socialist and communist. It was more specific on this area. Some of the most important women in this social feminists were Alexa Kollontai and Flora Tristan, both from Russia, I think. The second wave is called the radical feminism. Not radical, it's radical because it goes to the root of the problem, and it took place the second half of 20s, around 60s to 80s. The second wave of feminism made a step forward and started to claim not only the political and civil rights, but also some other topics such as sexuality, family, reproduction, disequalities, and women's jobs. It was the time of, after the Second World War, it happened this problem that during the Second World War, the women incorporated to the jobs because the men were in the war, and when the war ended, the women had to go back home and take care of the children. So they lost the jobs and they had to go a step in the back. So we must include in this wave some of the most influential women in the world that fight for the sexuality liberation, such as Simone de Beauvoir, the writer and philosopher of the second sex, Betty Friedman, with the mysticism of femininity, and Kate Millett, who wrote the work Sexual Policy. So this was the second wave, and now I'm going to say a little bit about the third wave, that is the queer wave. This third wave of feminism started in the 80s and remains until nowadays, even though there are some authors that consider that there is a fourth wave. The third wave defends not only traditional way to be or feel like a woman, but also it's open to the new ways of femininity and sexuality. We can include in this state the queer movement that supports all kinds of gender expression and sexuality and breaks the typical division between what is a man and what is a woman. So it includes transgender, transsexual, bisexual, demisexual, gender fluid, and more options. And finally, the fourth wave, that the authors who consider that it's a fourth wave place it in the current times when women's role in society is becoming more and more important. In this fourth wave, is showed with current demonstration, such as the 8th of March or LHTV Pride that take place around the world. Spain has one of the biggest parades of the world. And also with active protests against discrimination and sexual harassment through social media. Maybe you listen about Me Too, like in Twitter or in Instagram. These ideas open a new border where women are almost completely included in main areas of the society, and they are considered by politicians to create state politics in many countries. Despite that, today there are many discrimination that still remains, and now Yaiza is gonna point some examples of that.
Okay, so after this historical review, I would like to mark that feminism is not the opposite of male chauvinism. It's about equality and about having like the same opportunities, the same benefits, the same that we don't have limitations. And as Monica said, like we have still a lot to do through this. And this, I would like to add that. Feminism is not only about making women strong. We are already strong, but we want the world to perceive us like that. So the Soviet issues we have, one of the most important ones is related to work and economy. We have a gender gap through this, and this is one of the most important we have. Like, for example, we have the glass ceiling. So this means that when we are working, we reach on the top and we cannot go to further positions. And I can see this in my university. For example, during my bachelor's, I have seen that the 80% of my bachelors were women, but almost like the 60% of the teachers and researchers there were men, even though like it has been all the time like that. Like 17 to 80% of the students are women, but the only ones that reach the university level are mainly men. So that's a thing that I have seen it with my eyes. The other thing that it's around the world is like the salary gaps. In some places it's higher than others, but for example in Spain, the salary gap is around 5,000 euros per year as an average. So this means that a woman in Spain works like around 45 days for free in comparison to men. And also regarding to the work, we have the problem with conciliation because women tend to choose jobs that allow them to take care of their children. And they also have the problem that maybe they cannot find work because there's still discrimination at the time to hire them because they can be pregnant, so they will get okay, so yeah. So we would like to have the access, the work recognition, not just the money, but also like the recognition, so we can get higher positions and more participation and leadership. Maybe the leadership part is more related to the stereotypes and our cultural norms, and we have to teach inequality. So yeah, and another pillar from this feminism wave is like the gender violence. Like there are a lot of kinds of gender violence, like psychological, physical one, and the rates are obviously higher among women. Like for example in Arabia Saudi and Morocco, they are even charged for women that are being raped. So it's not that you are raped, that you get also charged due to that. And for example in Yemen, they don't take serious like a woman witnesses unless it's back up on a man's testimony. So yeah, and not only in these countries, but we can see it also in our countries that some women are afraid to tell what happened to them according to this violence, and this is related to the Me Too movement. And also we have like the mutilation problem, like really young girls from the infancy to around 15 years old, they get their genital removed, and this is still a thing nowadays. It's crazy, but it's still there, and we have to take this into account so we can fight for it. And also like the obstetrics violence, this is not as hard, but we still have it in our countries. Like when women are pregnant, they are not being respectful, they cannot choose about their decision related to their pregnancy. And this is also related to abortion issue nowadays. Like we have seen recently in USA, like they are forbidden in so many states, this decision, and we have to claim that our bodies are our choice. But also we can say that our bodies are also influenced by the stereotypes and the beauty standards, that it's a weight that carries heavier in women's shoulders. So I don't know, I think we have to take this into account because, for example, in my personal view, as a psychologist, I have seen like eating disorders rates, for example, it's like 80% woman. During my internship, I have seen like 100 of patients and only 3 were men. So, and this problem is related to beauty standards and social pressure around the body. And also with researching, like you can see that with researching they are usually getting like men because they don't want to have women, so they don't have to control their hormonal issues, and they are saying like, okay, they have this hormonal issue, so I don't want to work with women, I'm gonna take research in men. So this means that we don't have like medical advantage like with research for women.
Yeah, and I only wanted to point, like, have you ever considered that God is a woman, black woman, and lesbian? Like, with the question of